Hello, everybody. My name is Coach Ray Z, and welcome to Athletic Definition. Uh, this past weekend, I was in Sedona. Actually, I was there since Thursday, and I came back Monday. Um, it was a great experience. It is probably like my eighth time there, and I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about Run Sedona, the medals, the journey I've been on. I have my medals here with me, and this is the medal that I just earned this past weekend right here. So if you're not watching, you can always check the Instagram, and I'll be putting photos. Now this race, I started doing it in 2018. If you heard some of my hiking tips about Sedona, I mentioned it a little bit, but I heard about Sedona the first time many years ago. Uh, while watching the travel channel, and they were talking about like energy lines, or where people can go hiking that have injuries and not be tired. And I thought that was fascinating. And years went by, you know, uh, didn't really go there, but I always had in the back of my mind. I started running marathons and uh, wanted to. It was, I think, the year maybe 2000. I think 18. Yeah, 2018. I decided to run a marathon a month for the whole year. So I was looking for different marathons and trying to basically schedule a marathon a month. And I always wanted to go to Sedona. And I looked and I'm like, what do you know? They happen to have a marathon. So I went, and this is a medal for the 2018 Sedona marathon. So this was the last year that they had it. Um, it's possible it may come back from what I was talking to him this weekend. Now, the cool thing about the medal is it is a triangle shape. And even though you know, the next year they didn't have it, I loved it so much. So I went back and I started basically collecting the pieces because they come together. And here's the 2020. So this was right before the pandemic. And so I got really, really close to connecting my medal that takes 4 years really to connect, because every year you go, you get a piece. And then, the whole pandemic happened, and I really love Sedona. I love Sedona so much. Um, when I went there, that right away I found out about the city next to it called Cottonwood, and then I decided to go back. And so actually ended up going to Sedona twice a year for maybe the last up until the pandemic. I was going twice a year, and it was just really to explore. And the race is a good way to go do one of my favorite workouts, which is run. Really, really okay. The altitude's already up there, so if you're not used to it, I'm from Southern California. It can definitely affect you. Although I didn't feel any effects this time. Um, it's also really hilly, really hilly. And then the marathon, if they do bring it back, the second part is like gravel, so it's kind of like trail and pavement and hilly. But the sights are definitely, definitely worth it. And then the pandemic hit, and I still wanted to support Sedona. So what I did was I did the virtual. Now I am not a fan of virtual races at all. Um, and I should do a whole show on why I'm not a fan of virtual races. But I did one anyways, and since they didn't have a discontinued the Sedona Marathon, I figured virtually they added one, and I'm like, well, why not? I'll do what I thought wasn't going to happen again. So I did the Sedona Virtual Marathon, basically by myself, and you just kind of track it on an app and submit your times. So this is the 2021, and then they were going to try and do it that same year, but they weren't able to, and so then they returned this year. And the medal I was showing you earlier, although I really like it and I enjoyed it, um, I am a little disappointed that I didn't get to complete the 4 year medal. That's one of the reasons why I kept going back. And even though I prefer the marathon distance, in fact, I don't really do any half marathons except for this one. Um, to me, the marathon is still more of, it's basically an endurance race, and the half marathon, depending on your level, it could still be, in my opinion, considered a speed race. And I'm trying to reach 100 marathons. I'm at 55. I don't count the virtual one because it's real easy to cheat. And even though I didn't cheat, I just don't count it towards it. But Sedona is such a special place that I just keep going back, and not just for the medals. So what I've done there, if you want to go to the race, it's really inexpensive compared to the major races like New York City or LA Marathon. Um, LA Marathon's probably $200. The New York Marathon, I think, is like $400 to $500, and then you also have to think about expenses, travel, lodge, food. The great thing about Sedona is when you're there, you get to go hike. And For everyone listening in, I'm sure if you've heard about Sedona, you've heard about vortexes. So stick around. I'll get into the vortexes for sure. But these are some of the trails that I've hit over there. I've hit a airport vortex, airport loop trail, Bell Rock, Courthouse, Boynton Canyon, Cathedral Rock, Slim Shady, Teacup Trail, Soldiers Pass, and the Cave. Red Rock Crossing, which is really a state park. But from there, you can hit Cathedral Rock as well. I believe there's a couple other trails from there as well. If you kind of know it, they do connect. I went to Thunder Mountain Trail, West Fork Trail, the Seven Sacred Pools, Sinkhole, Sugarloaf, Coffee Pot, uh, Brim's Mesa Trail, and a few more. Those are just kind of the ones that I went over. Most of those I've gone to at least two times. So I have a lot of GoPro footage that I've recorded, and I've have already a few. If you go to my YouTube channel, Coach Ray Z, I have like three virtual tours that I show you the trail and the shorter ones. And I do have a lot more that I need to edit and put out there. And I'll probably be doing a series on the different Sedona trails because I absolutely love it. Run Sedona is like a small little community type of run. There is a lot of people. There is a lot of people, and the locals there are used to the altitude, so they can really kick butt on the trails. Although I I for some reason the year of 2020 is not available on the internet, but so far looking back on all the times I PR'd, which means a personal record, meaning I have done my best on the course yet, which to me is great because I've been doing a lot of training. And when you are not from high altitude and you go and you do good, it shows that your training is paying off. Next up is LA Marathon, March 20th. That'll be my 56th marathon. But Sedona, I try and tell everybody it's somewhere you got to go. It's not a large city, and it's not like buses go there or trains go there. So as far as getting there, unless you have a vehicle, that's probably the easiest way to get there. From California, it takes me about 6 to 7 hours, depending on when I go. I've gone many different ways. The first time I did it, at the time I was working for a bank, so I got off work. And anytime you go on vacation, of course, your client's going to want to keep you there longer, or some sort of emergency would happen. And didn't get out on time. Got home, changed, ate, and took off to Sedona maybe around 10 o'clock at night. Drove through the whole night. Was in shell shock when I realized Sedona is up north and it's cold. Had no idea it was going to be that cold, at least for a Cali kid like myself. So that was interesting. And when you're driving up there, if you're driving from the south, you will just see spectacular views of Bell Rock and Courthouse. So since I drove through the night, I didn't see those views. So I wasn't quite like, oh wow, But what I did notice is I could see the stars. Sedona has some sort of like light pollution thing where there's only lights on the main street, and that's about it. I see the stars there, and it's undescribable. Um, you know, um, traveled a few places, but not that many places. But uh, you know, meeting people, I met a gentleman who's been living there for 9 years, and he's an older gentleman, a runner. He lived all over the world. He was living in Saudi Arabia, had a couple homes in Colorado, and him and his wife were going to go to Grand Canyon. So they kind of looked up a place where they could go, and they saw Sedona, and they're like, well, we'll just kind of like try to stay there on the way to Grand Canyon. And then he said when he drove up, saw the views, his mouth dropped, and it's been dropping ever since. So he moved there. He said he's been all over the world, and there's quite no place like Sedona. I have not been all over the world, but I've been to a few places, and to me, uh, you know, us humans building nice buildings and infrastructure. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. It's nice, but to me, it does not compare to what nature can create. Um, yeah, it's it. I mean, how can you compare like even like a skyscraper compared to the red rocks when you go there? It you know, Sedona has so many things to offer. So if you plan to go next year, you want to do the run, they have a 5K, they have a 10K, they have a half marathon. And as I mentioned, they are considering bringing back the full marathon. I would try to encourage it. It would be awesome for me to get another one under my belt, even though it's really tough. I would say at the time when I did it, it was maybe in my top three more difficult ones because at the time, not used to elevation, starting so cold, so it was quite the challenge. Um, the difficult thing about that is when you get there, you get excited, you see all these trails and views, and you want to hit them all, and it's hard to not put in miles. Um, so if you're gonna do this one, you may not want to do it as like, "Oh, I'm gonna come and PR," because what tends to happen is people, I see it over and over, for the last 5 years I've been doing it. People will stop, take pictures along the mountains because it's breathtaking. And I'm not gonna say that the first time I went through, I didn't do it. I did it, and then you get to go on different trails. The trails, even though there might be like a couple miles, will probably take you about 3 hours roughly. And I know it sounds like, well, how could they take so long? One of the reasons is because you're just kind of stopping in awe, and literally you can hear people everywhere going, "Oh, wow. Oh, wow." Like just in awe, and that's beautiful. And you just don't hear women saying it, you hear men saying it as well. So everyone's just kind of like just in awe. West Fork Trail, I've been there twice. I went there in February and I went there in April. So I did get to see snow on that trail. That is, if you look up the top 10 most beautiful trails in the United States, you will see that one on many different articles, not just one magazine. And I got to say, when I was there, I completely agree. It's just amazing. All the trails are there. So on Thursday, when I got there, they let me check in early. I got an Airbnb. And so instead of resting, because this year, usually I drive or rent a car. This year, I tried taking the train. Now, the train from LA to what I thought was Phoenix was not too bad. But then I guess Phoenix kind of changed their rules, so there's no more longer like public trains that actually pull up into the station. Into the station, they have to be some sort of like basically like business. I forget what the word is now. So once you get close to Arizona, or you're in Arizona, they actually take you to. You have to take a bus from there. It's part of the train. It's part of Amtrak. It's all part of the same charge. So the train ride was maybe about 6 hours, and then from there, I took the bus, which is probably about another hour, and it's a shuttle really, and there was like maybe three people in the shuttle, so it's not too many people. They pick you up in a city called Mariposa, and then they take you to Phoenix. From there, there is no buses, no trains that go to Sedona. Sedona does have an airport, but it's a small one. So because it's a small one, if you land there, I think I checked the prices, they were like $4 or $5,000. Um, Sedona, just in general, like I think it has like 5 to 10,000 people in population, so it's a small town, and there's really, I mean, there's plenty of jobs, but it's kind of expensive. The rate is almost kind of like LA, although it is kind of expensive. there's over 100 trails there. So for me to explore over 100 trails, I feel like I have to move there. And so we'll see. It's, since the first time I went there, it's been in the back of my mind. I keep going back. I love it. I mean, I love California too. So the goal would be able to live in both. Um, and one of my favorite trails there that I didn't get to go to this time is called Cathedral Rock. I Every time I've gone there, so it's been like maybe I've probably been on that trail 7 times now. It's my favorite. The views are there. Um, it's amazing. It undescribable. When you get to the top, it's only like a mile point one maybe to climb to the top. There are certain sections where you are gonna have to either get on your butt and crawl backwards to come down, and but besides that, it's pretty easy overall. Um, just this one little narrow part. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see pictures in the past of me climbing the Cathedral Rock. And so this time I didn't get to go to it because since I took the train and I took public transportation, the only trails I could get to were the ones that I could walk to. Now, luckily, Sedona's so small that I stayed in a house. It was really close. I'm going to say about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes, that's probably about a mile and a half from where I was staying. So I would walk 30 minutes to the entrance of the trail. And then from there, I could pretty much hit other trails because a lot of them interconnect. So when I called the city of Chambers, they told me you can't get to any of the trails if you don't get like a private tour. So that's something you may want to consider if you ever want to go visit. The Run Sedona will be next February. It's always in February. I believe February 4th. I am not an ambassador for them yet. I just love it. It's such a great race. And then you get to go hiking either the day before, the day after. I highly recommend staying, coming in before if you can to adjust to the altitude, and that'll help you during the race, and also to stay after. That way, it gives you some time to explore the trails. The major trails that I think are most well known is Bell Rock, and as you're coming in, you can see it. It's amazing. I got to do that one during the rain. Uh, Also, Airport Vortex Trail. That one is I have that one on virtual tour on YouTube. That one is maybe like a mile. Now that one, if you go to the left, you're going to start the mile, but if you go to the right, it's called Airport Loop Trail, and that one takes quite a while to go around. I've done that one as well. Um, but if you just want to get to the view right away, you want to climb that Airport Mesa. It's a 360-degree view of Sedona. It is amazing. I get the downside is that it could be is sometimes there's a lot of people, especially like the major ones. So if the great thing about Sedona is, and what's recommended is you want to go there and try and meditate, try and ask questions that you have been contemplating for a long time. Pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to how you feel. Just really try to connect. And it's so easy to connect there. There's just something about it there, the energy that makes you feel happy, makes you feel like good and like just so connected. And so that's where I'm going to get into a little bit of the vortexes. So vortexes, depending on where you look uh, and what you hear, it basically there's supposed to be places where there's extra energy there. Like I mentioned, if you, let's say, you're contemplating, should I leave this job, or you're unhappy with your relationship, that's a place where you can go meditate on it and get the answer. So those are some of the things. Now, when you hear about vortexes, you'll hear like masculine energy, feminine energy, upward energy, downward energy. Let's see, I've heard all kinds of different terms. Some people will even, depending on their sensitivity of you know being connected, they might even feel like there's a negative energies or negative mountains, or they'll kind of get like the heebie-jeebies of going to certain places. Not everybody, because it's subtle energy. It's not like whoa, but you'll definitely feel just happy there. And so, you know, some of the things that I've kind of could compare it to is people that don't like to work on their inner self, on things that maybe bother them. Those are the people that seem to feel that about these places. And it's most likely because it's making them reflect on their life and things that they probably try to avoid. So that's why they probably consider it negative. And then most of us like the feeling, enjoy the feeling of connecting with nature. And that's when most people say, oh, it's a positive energy. You know, so those are kind of like the easiest way I could explain it. There's all kinds of scientific tests done on there. Um, Something I encourage you to look into. Um, there's something definitely magical about it. I'm gonna get a little woo on you, but the very first time I went there, I went to Cathedral Rock, and I was hiking there, and I went with uh, a girl, and we were just hiking. And in my mind, I started getting these thoughts, and I was like, I feel like this is where mankind started. And then I told myself, man, you're crazy. Like, that's not what you were taught in school. How could that be? Just ignore that thought. And then, like, 2 seconds later, the girl that I went with, she's like, I feel like this is where Earth started. I was like, whoa, that's a trip. And after I go places, especially hiking and mountains, I like to look up like the history of it. So when I came back, I started looking into Sedona, Cathedral Rock, and then that's when I learned about the Hopi Indian. And ah, I'll probably mess up. m- m- I won't even say it because I can't think of the name right now. But um, they believe in the Star People. The Star People came down to Arizona, and that's where life started, and then from there it spread out. So it was just very interesting that it's kind of like what I felt. And an author wrote a book on it. His book he wrote about is on Boynton Canyon, and he talks about how when he would go hiking there, he would ask and pray and meditate, and he saw like ruins, and then when he went down there, they were gone, and then it happened to him again, and then he realized that there used to be natives living there, and so he saw like a vision. Um, and it just gets more interesting on it because you can easily go to the History Channel, look up Hopi, the Star People. You'll see that in history that they probably have like the longest recorded like people living there over 1,000 years. All the places where they have lived, they aligned it with the stars. um, they purposely chose a place where you can't really get water, so that the Star People showed them how to survive according, to what they tell you. Um, so I just got more and more and more fascinated with it. Um, and there's still more to do. There's so much to do there because part of the legend is that in Sedona, the gods, the Star People, live in Sedona for 6 months, and then the other 6 months they go to the San Francisco Peaks. The San Francisco Peaks, I can't remember the name of the mountains, but the three mountains, some people say they kind of look like pyramids, and they're in Flagstaff, and that they live in Flagstaff for the other 6 months of the year and then go back to Sedona. Those mountains are supposed to be sacred to the Native Americans. A lot of these mountains are sacred to the Native Americans. Um, where they have the ski resort in Flagstaff, that is considered sacred to the Native Americans. They fought for many many years and they ended up losing. People go there ski now. Um, I guess, and even though they didn't want it built there, they didn't want people skiing. I guess to show them some sort of respect, they don't allow any fake snow. It has to be natural snow. Um, but everybody who talks about that place that I know of, I don't know anybody who's gone to Sedona who's been disappointed. I don't know anybody who's gone on any of those trails and be like, yeah, I didn't like it, or I hated it. I know one person that went there kind of with a negative attitude, and they changed and they ended up really enjoying it, and I know they want to go back. So if you get a chance, Sedona is in northern Arizona. They have a half marathon, a 5K, and a 10K. A 5K is 3.1 miles, a 10K is 6.2, and a half marathon is 13.1. Um, as I mentioned before, it is in altitude already, and it is very hilly. But the sites are well worth it, and everything else you can do there as well. It's a small town feel. Um, Probably the biggest thing that I learned there is when I was driving as well as there's roundabouts there. So if you're not used to a roundabout, that's something that you have to get used to in Sedona. They have a lot of roundabouts over there. And it's just basically because you get a lot of people that aren't from there. But if you get a chance, definitely check it out. As I mentioned, I will be doing more on individual trails, not just kind of like a brief. I mentioned a bunch of different trails, but it's taken me about 5 years to hit all of them. And I want to go back one more time this year. We'll see. But if not, I will be there next year, February 4th. If you'd like to go, that'd be awesome. Great time to meet, get a little run in, enjoy beautiful Sedona, learn about the Native Americans, all the legends. You can actually see hydroglyphs there. You can do yoga on top of a mountain. The resorts there are very very nice. A lot of five-star restaurants. The Mexican food there, it's getting there. They actually have like three. I'm Mexican American, so I went to. They have one called Tortas Fuego, which is pretty good. They have one across the street, and I can't remember the name of that one, but they make homemade tortillas, homemade tamales. They're pretty good, but a little bit pricey for the size. And then they have a like a little big restaurant that claims to make the biggest margaritas there. I haven't had a chance to try it since this time I took public transportation. I had a chance to actually go and check out the Oak Creek Brewery. It was happened to be along the way to the trail. So when I got done to the trail, I got to go and try some local beers. They're all actually brewed there from Arizona. So I tried the Snake Charmer IPA, and then I tried the Haze for Days IPA. All these times to Sedona, I've never really done the nightlife, which that's usually what I'm about when I go to a city. But when it comes to like hiking and exploring, I'd rather just wake up early. By the time the sun's up, I'm already on the trails. I literally spent pretty much every day on the mountains. Because when I got there Thursday, I did about 12 miles of hiking, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta take it easy because I'm running on Saturday. So on Friday, I probably did about 10 miles. Then I did my half marathon on Saturday. I gave it my all, and I was just dead. So even though I wanted to go hiking, I just used it as my day to relax. And then the next day, I woke up and I did like 16 miles. And then I had to come back Monday, which was the sad day for me. And then on the way home, got even more complicated. The just the whole system there, kind of, as far as like I mentioned, if you want to get there, I recommend a car because I tried the train and the train makes no sense. You have to take a shuttle from Sedona. They don't take you to Flagstaff, which is above Sedona to the north. They take you back down to Phoenix. Then you have to take a bus from Phoenix back up to Flagstaff just to take the Amtrak back to Los Angeles, which I'm like, I'm gonna come back like on Tuesday, which made no sense. So I'm like, oh, what I'll do is I'll just take the bus. I'm not a big fan of traveling on the bus, but I tried it. So I got the Greyhound, and on the way back, the bus gets delayed like 4 hours. So I'm just at the bus stop. And at the bus stop in Phoenix, I'm gonna say there was a lot of strange people. A lot of people looked like they were on drugs. Guy who just got out of jail decides to sit next to me. seems to always happen. I get the gangsters that want to come talk to me. He was cool. He was just telling me that he just got out and he's a little worried, that if he's going to be in a halfway house right there, that, just the way it kind of looks that he could easily fall. So I just talked to him about working out and just focusing on himself. And then I was on my way. So then I'm on the bus. Some idiots get kicked off for stealing beer at a local stop. And I'm like, you guys, how old are you guys? And it was better, get rid of the troublemakers. And they got left at Blythe, which is in the middle of the desert. Um, and then I make it to LA. And when I make it to LA, I realize the Greyhound station, which I should have done a little research better, is not at Union Station. Union Station in downtown LA is where you can connect to pretty much everything. And then I was like, ooh, I got there like because it was delayed. I should have been here like at 6. I had a ride. I ended up arriving like at 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I kind of like didn't want to basically walk out in LA. It could be dangerous at times, like at 1 o'clock. So I kind of just laid there. And then I'm like looking at different buses and I'm like, ooh, there's a 3:30 bus. And then the trains start running. Trains, when I mean trains, are like monorail systems. We do have a couple subways, but it's part of the same train system. And it opens at 4 in the morning. I really wanted to get home. It had already been a long day, and a lot of the buses and routes have been changed due to the pandemic. So I get on a bus, and it tells me, the bus driver's like, "Oh no, I don't go to Union Station anymore. Everything's been changed." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna get off right here then," not realizing that I got off on Skid Row. Now I had only gone like 3 blocks, but those 3 blocks left me in a place where it could definitely be dangerous at 3 in the morning. Skid Row is just a huge area of an encampment for the homeless. Um, I mean, plenty of beers. I got some guy try to sell me a bike. Some guy tried to, I don't know. I just ignored him. So I'm tired. I have bags, and the bus kind of left me screwed. So good thing I'm an endurance athlete. I'm like, I'm just gonna walk faster, walk faster. I made it to Union Station. They keep it locked up until 4. Once again, I run into a bunch of people that seem to be on drugs. They're all talking to themselves. And it's just getting longer and longer. I ended up making it home like at 5, 6 in the morning. Felt like a zombie for a day and a half. But even with all that, I'm so happy that I got to go to Sedona after missing it in 2021 because of the pandemic. And as I can showed you the previous medals, I was trying to complete something that takes 4 years. Completing these medals that are triangles. For those of you that just joined in, could kind of take a look. So they're um, they're basically triangles, and they all connect. And it takes you 4 years to finish this medal. And then because of the pandemic, I think a lot of races are down with the runners. So they probably wanted to do something a little different. A lot of people like color. A lot of people like their medals with color. So they switched it to this one. And I basically, even though I waited 5 years, and even did the virtual one right here, I will not get to complete my goal, which was set out 5 years ago to get this giant medal. And even though I didn't get to complete it, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to go there. After what we've all been through, some people, to me, it seems like they don't really appreciate the interaction of human beings, and you know kind of going back to normal. Maybe some people just didn't really suffer or have to deal with a lot of isolation. And for me, I'm just, like I said, super grateful. It's such a beautiful place. It's really what I needed, to balance myself. It's like the place where I can go, and it's my happy place. It's the place where I can recharge. And after missing it for a year, I definitely needed that recharge. I got to clear my mind. I got to meditate. I got to just walk. And like I said, I spent the whole time just in nature. And over here in LA, you're just kind of dealing with some of the things I mentioned of, a bunch of drugs, the cost of living, and all this noise and bombardment, cell phones, everything going on. And so you're actually just trying to block out noise. And when you're in nature, you're actually trying to take more, absorb more in instead of blocking it out. You hear sounds of birds or the wind flowing, and just it's so different. You're actually I saw a cardinal for the first time over there in Arizona. Never seen a cardinal. I seen like, I forget what they're called, but it's like Pumbaa and Simone, the little wild pigs. um I saw a deer, which I've seen before, but those are just experiences that when you're just kind of sitting in nature, you'd be surprised, especially there. It's like, if you go look at some pictures, you're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. Go look at like Cathedral Rock. That's probably my favorite one. Go look at Bell Rock. Go look at even the Chapel of the Holy Cross. If you get a chance to look at that church, I got to go there. Uh, it's amazing. It's got some cool alien little history to it, which when I talk about more about that, if you guys are interested. uh, and then I want to also show you the finisher shirt for Sedona. So this is this year's shirt right here. Very simple. And then on the back, it's got finisher. These are not cotton. I always forget the name of this material, but it's not. It's nice because cotton basically will make you chafe, and if you don't know what chafe is, then chafing is basically when your clothes start sticking to you and you get rashes because you've been working out or sweating for so long. If you're a runner, some people, when you're running a race, people hold signs for you, and some people have a sign that says "chafing the dream," which the signs always make you laugh and kind of help you finish. But yeah, that's a little review of Sedona, Run Sedona 2022. I look forward to going back next year. Uh, yeah, it's just so amazing. I usually, like I said, go back in April, but things are kind of crazy right now for me personally. So we'll see if I can go back in April or not. There's so much more to explore over there. The year I tried to go to the San Francisco Peaks and Flagstaff, I didn't realize how much snow there is there, so I was not prepared. Didn't attempt it because I didn't want to be one of those people on the news. You have to be very careful when you go hiking in the mountains, especially with the snow. There's a thing called black ice where it looks normal, and the next thing you know, you fell down the mountain. I actually fell for the first time in 6 years. I'm very, very careful when I go hiking, and I fell on Friday, the day before the race, and I fell on Big Thunder Mountain, and I fell and I landed on my left butt cheek, and oh, did that hurt! That hurt so bad. Um, and to add insult to injury, after I landed on the rock hit my Achilles on the way down. So I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna feel that the next day on the race, and I did, but I think with the energy, I didn't really feel it that much, but after the race and the next day when I try to go hiking, I would have gone further, but it was really, really bothering me. Yeah, so my goal the next day was to go through. It's a trail called Teacup Trail, so I cut through there, and then I went up Soldiers Pass, then went Brims, and then from there I was gonna go to. It's called Devil's Bridge. I made it all the way there, but my hip was just hurting so much that I came back. So be sure if you go hiking, take some good hiking shoes, and just be careful. Even if you're an expert and you do it all the time, accidents happen. That's why on the other one I was mentioning, what if you fall? You got to be prepared in case something happens, and you got to survive out there. It's pretty cold over there, and there's way more trail tips that I'm going to provide. But I'll be bringing my guest for that. I have a couple of friends that are really into trails. I like the people that know a lot about plants, because, like in California, we don't have poison ivy, but we have poison oak, and it's really good to know about the different plants as we go hiking, so you know what to touch, what not to touch. Um, And it's amazing because nature has a way of protecting itself. I can't remember the name of the plant, but it pretty much comes out after a fire, and it'll stay there for 5 years. And if you walk by it, it it's like worse than poison oak, I heard. And basically after 5 years it just goes away. So it's almost like, Mother Earth is telling you, I'm hurt, don't walk on here, let me heal. And then, once it heals, you can walk back on here. But fires, you know take so many years, like the nature, to recover. So if you do go out there and you start campfires, please be careful. I too many of It seems like every year in LA there's a fire and it ruins a lot of my playgrounds, and it takes years and years, like 10 years or more. um, Prior to the fires, I think a couple of years ago, I can't remember the name of it, in LA, where it burned down uh, part of like the Ventura, Ojai area. I went to San Diego, and the El Cajon fire was one of the biggest fires prior to that. And when I went, it was already 10 years later. And you can still see burned trees everywhere and just the recovery. And it's just so beautiful. So I always encourage people to just be careful out there with fires, learn about them if you're going to be camping. And not only that, you have to know that permits, where you can start a fire, and just be careful. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this gives you some interest in going to Sedona, either to go run, to go connect, um, to go learn about more about our history, the Native Americans, the energy there, and just pretty much connect, because I think that's what's most important. Everybody that goes there, people go there from all over the world, and they're going there because, you know it's somewhere where you won't get ridiculed for your woo woo ideas. Like I live in LA, and you can find a lot of people here that are into, like, we got people asking for soy lattes, this and this and that. So you get a lot of yoga people, a lot of people who will be open to ideas. But in Sedona, everybody's open to ideas. I was really looking for that book that I have that talks about vortexes more, but I couldn't find it. I'll look for it and I'll talk about it more. This is another book I got over there. This one's about trails, because some of the trails there, if you really want to get into, like, look at the hydroglyphs and look at like the caves and stuff, they're really more for you got to be a local or know people. So sometimes you got to go through the books. Not everything will be on YouTube. Um, so I have a lot of information on Sedona. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a chance to visit one time in your life. It's someplace where I think everybody should visit. It's, like I said, probably not to live there. It's fairly expensive. The houses are beautiful, a lot of rich people. I would say most of them are retired, because there's really not, the jobs there aren't gonna have you be able to afford that house. Most people, like, that work in Sedona, from what I know, go to Cottonwood, the city next door, or Flagstaff, and then they drive up there. There's a couple other cities surrounding it, but yeah, if you guys need any help, been to plenty of Airbnbs. I can let you know. I'm always happy to help anyone go to Sedona, explore it, enjoy it, connect, and have fun. Have fun. That's the most important thing when you go there. Uh, and if you get a chance, take your family members. I have. They loved it just as much as I did so far. I was posting on my Instagram all the trails that I went, and people were like, "Wow, that's so beautiful." So I already have like my friend and his wife who want to go, and then I have another friend who wants to go. So I'm already rounding up people for next year, and if I can get enough people, maybe I can get some, like, hotel discounts, or we could try to work something out where we get a nice group rate. So if you're interested, feel free to contact me on any of my social media. You can find me under Coach Ray Z. Thank you for joining me. Even though I did a show on Friday, I feel like I've been gone for so long. So tomorrow I will be back with another show. And then after that, the guests will be coming. I have a lot of really good guests coming up, and some big guests as far as in the fitness industry. And I'm definitely excited about that. I'm a lot of things that are happening as far as like the guests coming on. I've been writing emails, and sometimes I waited like 2 months for a reply, and I actually didn't even think I got a reply. And when I was in Sedona, I got an email from a fitness person I been following for years, and they're like basically a pioneer in working out. So I'm like, wow, like I'm excited that they read my email, and just by reaching out to people, I see the momentum of what's happening. And so I'm excited to be bringing you more guests tomorrow. I'm not sure the topic yet. Next week we'll be back to guest. So 6 p.m. Pacific time zone, athletic definition. My name is Coach Ray Z, and thank you everybody for joining me in the audience and on the streams and on the simulcast. Till tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your day.